All right, sir. I think we're going to get started as others start to join in here. We are supposed to have over 300 guests on our webinar this morning, this evening in Abu Dhabi, for all of my friends in the UAE and colleagues there, with our session with His Excellency Dr. Tariq bin Hindi, who's the Director General of the Abu Dhabi Investment Office. Dr. bin Hindi has more than 18 years of experience in asset management, private equity, and investment banking. Prior to his current position, Tariq held various roles at Emirates NBD, Commercial Bank of Dubai, Mubadala, Citigroup, Dubai Holding, Delta Airlines, and UPS. Quite a portfolio of experience. Tariq holds a PhD in economics from Imperial College London, as well as graduate degrees from Columbia University and London Business School, and an undergraduate degree from Clayton State, Georgia, right here in the United States. And I have to say, we connected on the pre-call with the experience that we both grew up as farmers on agricultural farms in the United States, Tariq in Georgia and myself in Pennsylvania. So we've made that agricultural connection. The rules of the game here are that we have the Q&A chat function set up. And if you have a question you'd like to ask at the end of prepared remarks on the Q&A portion, please send that in to us right now so that we can moderate during the Q&A. With that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Tariq bin Hindi for his opening remarks. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Danny, and welcome everybody to this session. I feel very privileged to be talking to all of you. And as Danny said right before the call started, we had quite an interesting exchange on our respective backgrounds and experiences. And it's always nice to connect with people at that level. And I think that's one of the key drivers of what it is that we're doing at the Abu Dhabi Investment Office, is that we're trying to connect and relate to all the individuals and entities that it is that we are engaging with. I think if I take a step back and I look at what it is that we were set up to do. So we were established in February of 2019 with the key mandate to promote, attract, and facilitate investment into Abu Dhabi. And a lot of the key drivers that allow us to be successful there are both the financial and non-financial incentives, but also what it is that Abu Dhabi has created and what it's done over the last 40, 50 years in terms of building this incredible infrastructure, in terms of the consistency, the credibility, and the commitment to making sure that everyone's experience in Abu Dhabi is solid, it's robust, it's resilient, and it's long-term. And we are taking that mission that was set by our founding father, may he rest in peace, and we are looking at how it is that we can continue that trajectory and how it is that we can work with the innovators of the world, with companies that are looking at setting up operations in Abu Dhabi, growing, helping us, move in various sectors and clusters, and how it is that we can grow there, but also how it is that they can drive the dialogue, how it is that they can help us with policy, how it is that they can engage with us at a level that allows us to continue to improve and enhance what is already a phenomenal infrastructure that we've got in Abu Dhabi. And so I think with that, brings with it a lot of interesting conversations. We have conversations with entrepreneurs and we have conversations with Fortune 500 companies. And the conversations can be quite different, but they also center around the same thing, and that is the human experience in Abu Dhabi. Because ultimately you are talking to individuals, whether it's a large company or a small company, and how it is that we can facilitate that experience in Abu Dhabi and how it is that we can make it as solid as possible. And so I think when I look at what it is that we've been established to do, the programs that we run, the individuals that we work with, the wider Abu Dhabi ecosystem, and how it is that we try to bring that together as sort of that central hub for information, access, and kind of execution at the Abu Dhabi level, I think we're playing a substantial role in that. And we're constantly evolving, constantly improving, looking at how it is that we can engage more robustly with the international community. And I really just want to say that Abu Dhabi is open for business, and it's been an interesting 6 months. And I think that it's presented a lot of opportunities and continues to do so. And with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Danny.
Thank you, Tariq. I want to say that part of what we do is try to outreach more broadly in the United States. The Business Council is responsible for the bilateral relationship between all of the United States and all of the 7 Emirates of the UAE, so all 50 states and all 7 Emirates. We have on the call today representatives from 7 states. I want to name those: Alabama, Connecticut, Kansas, Florida, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And this is part of our effort to outreach more broadly across the United States and getting the message that Abu Dhabi is open for business, as you say, and that it's open for partnership with American firms. The Business Council brought a delegation to visit ADIO in February as part of our Agritech, agricultural tech delegation. And I want to turn to that with regard to COVID in a moment. But first, let's have a little bit more of a macro focus, if we could. I want to ask you a few questions about how business sentiment has changed in the first half of 2020 and how this has impacted your investment priorities for the remainder of the year. What do you see that's different? What do you see that, how should American companies thinking about coming to the UAE to invest and do business, what should they take away and think differently about for the next half of the year?
It's a great question. I'll try to address the multiple points within that question because I think each one of them is quite unique when you look at sort of what's happened. If I break the first half of the year up into 2 portions, I think the first quarter, we were having very different conversations to the second quarter of the first half of this year. And I think that one of the things that really stands out for me, which in a lot of our conversations with companies and individuals abroad that are looking at relocating to Abu Dhabi or expanding part of their operations into Abu Dhabi, is how immediate and how efficient and effective the government was with taking seriously the risk of COVID and all the various initiatives that were put in place to make sure that they protected the #1 asset that this country values, and that is the people that are on the ground that are helping shape this country, right? And I think that if I look at what has happened in the second half of the first half of the year, right, it's actually presented a lot of opportunities. And what we've seen is that, you know, the government has stepped up with stimulus injection. It's looking at how it can relax a lot of the business regulations and how it was using the private sector to help drive some of that regulatory transformation. We were looking at how it is that companies, and we were working with a lot of companies to reassess their business plans and how it is that they could better position themselves for when we come out of this period that we're going through right now. And I think most importantly, that this was a time for innovation. We saw a lot of incumbent, very large entities that have reached out to us looking at how it is that they can adopt technology, how it is they can plug into a lot of the different initiatives that the government has in Abu Dhabi, but then also looking at sort of the small work from home SME setups and how it is that they have reshaped their business models and how it is that they have worked with the government to make sure that we introduce various changes to the regulatory environment, whether it be visa related or licensing related, or just the ability to execute contracts. Now, I think that when I look at it from an opportunity perspective, it's been quite phenomenal in terms of the conversations that have been that we've been having with individuals. And if you look at the recent announcement by ADNOC on the largest single FDI transaction into the Middle East this year so far, that was right in the midst of, you know, a serious global economic situation that we're facing. Abu Dhabi is driving that FDI into the UAE. The UAE officially by the UN is ranked #1 as it relates to FDI into the Middle East. And we've got a very solid story in Abu Dhabi about how it is that we're driving that transformation. Now, one of the points that you brought up, and I want to reflect back to what many of your audience members may have heard from His Excellency Khaldoon yesterday, was the value of partnerships. We look at every conversation that we have as a potential long-term partnership for Abu Dhabi at every level of society, whether it be at the societal level where it is that people are interacting with one another, or at the policy-making level. And I think that this is one of the really interesting aspects of what it is that we're trying to accomplish through this engagement with companies, especially US companies. There are a lot of legacy US companies that are based here that have very strong relationships, and we want to keep expanding on that. We want to keep building on that. We want to make sure that that narrative is consistent in Abu Dhabi, that it is that when we reach out to companies internationally, and especially in the US that are looking to move out here, that they're able to get all the information that they need in one place. And it's really, really important to realize that whilst it may be a singular message that we are delivering, we know that it's not a singular conversation, because companies that are coming to Abu Dhabi are looking for very different things that they're trying to accomplish, whether it be just help with setting up, whether it be investment, whether it be taking advantage of some of the rebate offers that we have. And so we're looking at how it is that we can facilitate, help them, and make sure that the experience is as seamless as possible in Abu Dhabi.
Wow, thank you. Well, you've answered my multifaceted question with a lot of answers that lead to a lot of more questions. Let's start. You mentioned the call we had with Khaldoon yesterday, Khaldoon Al Mubarak, His Excellency, the CEO of Mubadala. And Khaldoon was wide-reaching in his comments for sure. But talk to me a little bit, tell the audience a little bit about how you fit into the Abu Dhabi ecosystem, how you coordinate and create Abu Dhabi Inc. To face the world.
Again, a great question. And I think that when I look at the successes that we've had so far, it's been, it's testament to the way that the leadership has really built that narrative into not just the wider international audience, but also amongst the Abu Dhabi Inc. Companies. And so I look at our relationship with the likes of Mubadala. We are engaged at every level with Mubadala. We understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish, and we help facilitate that. So companies looking at going into various sectors that Mubadala is focused on, we want to play a part in how it is that they come in and they work with Mubadala. Now, we know that they are having conversations with Mubadala already in many instances, so we're looking at how it is that we may be able to streamline things for them as it relates to visa, setup, real estate, understanding the local culture, so on and so forth. So we operate with this broad blanket approach of really caring for the investor. And it's this investor care approach that we've got. We want to make sure it's this single stop, but I go back to that whole single narrative, but multiple conversation point that I had. So if companies are interested in doing business in Abu Dhabi, they can approach us and we will gladly take any questions, queries that any of the companies may have, and look at how it is that we can help them with the benefits that we offer, but then also plug into the wider Abu Dhabi ecosystem. So my job, as much as it is to get the Abu Dhabi narrative out, is to also highlight what Mubadala is doing, what Abu Dhabi Holding is doing, what Kizad, what Masdar, what 2454, what all these economic zones are doing, and the programs that they have in place, and how it is that we can help drive business in a collective manner. So, and I know that we probably get this, we'll probably address this towards the end of our conversation, but please do reach out, engage with us. It's the best way for us to be able to take this forward so that we can understand what we can do better and also help you with getting established here on Abu Dhabi.
Thank you. That's perfect. We do have a number of questions about how to engage with ADIO. We'll put the slide up again at the end with the contact details, and there is in the chat function, there is a link that's already been provided for everyone if you want to look to that. I know that you and your team welcome engagement by U.S. companies, and that you have an open door. And I really like, as you said in the pre-session and just now on the phone, single point of contact, but while multiple conversations are going on. I think that's the quote for the day from this briefing. Actually, it's really, really powerful. So thank you for that. A number of folks on the call are asking, what's your focus? So drill down a little bit on what, if you had to name 8 sectors or 10 sectors or 3 sectors, what are the main sectors that you're trying to highlight right now looking forward after COVID-19? And save the ag tech space. We'll have a specific conversation about that. But what are the other sectors that you're focused on?
So Danny, as the entity that was set up to help drive FDI into Abu Dhabi, I'm going to try to answer this by saying that we're open to every sector. We want everyone to come and be based in Abu Dhabi. But I think what we're really looking at here is the innovative sectors, right? And companies within each of those sectors and how they drive innovation. For us, it's really important that when a company is looking to come set up in Abu Dhabi, that we help them plug into everything that's in Abu Dhabi, whether it be the universities, whether it be the GREs, the government-related entities, whether it be the private sector, so on and so forth. So we want to make sure that those companies that are coming through driving innovation, helping with R&D, creating high-skilled jobs, but also enhancing the various clusters that we already have through different types of technology. And that is a key driver for us, is technology, technological enhancement, the changes that brings with us, and how it is that it impacts society over the long term. And so I think that if I was to narrow this down based on the programs that we have, clearly we have a focus on Agtech, we're looking at ICT, tourism is a big one for us. And there are a few other sectors that are there, and we're happy to provide that information to all of the investors and companies that are on this call that are looking for that. We've got a presentation that we can offer them by email or however they contact us. And I think that that's a key driver for us, is that we're open to every sector, but innovation is at the heart of what it is that we're looking to push.
So with regard to innovation, can you say a few more words about what are you specifically doing to drive awareness about opportunities for innovation-based partnerships, and what are you providing? What's ADIO providing?
So let me try to address that. So I'll get to that question first. Let me try to address that through a couple of examples, right? And these are important because I think if you look at the examples that I'll offer, it covers a wide spectrum of what it is that we do. So we recently invested in a startup that was looking at how it is that they could bridge the gap between the unemployed or high-skilled workers that may not be able to find full-time employment with being involved into economic output. Fantastic setup, working really well, plugged in across Abu Dhabi, and we're helping facilitate that, right? And that's a story of some ambitious, innovative individuals looking to come in and fill a gap that wasn't filled before. And then I look at some of the conversations, or one of the conversations we're having right now with a very large tech company out of the US, and what it is that they're looking at accomplishing in Abu Dhabi. And for them, it's not necessarily filling a gap. What they're trying to do is they're trying to use Abu Dhabi as the hub to access 4 billion people that are within a 7.5-hour flight from Abu Dhabi, using it as the core infrastructure to be able to service those geographies from Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. And so the conversations are very different, but what it is that they offer is very similar in that it's bringing new technology here. It's establishing Abu Dhabi as a hub for innovation and driving a lot of that narrative in terms of where it is that these companies are coming to set up and how it is that they're helping us with these various activities. But I think that if I look at some of the programs that we offer, we have financial incentives and we've got non-financial incentives. Our financial incentives are typically structured around rebates. So we want companies to come in. We're looking at how it is that we can work with them on their business model, on their experience in Abu Dhabi, and how it is that we can effectively reward them for coming to set up in Abu Dhabi. We look at anything that's innovation, R&D, high-skilled labor related, or wider ecosystem building, and we will offer up to 75% of any of that investment back as a rebate program. And that's if you qualify for a financial incentive. On the non-financial incentives, it's that connectivity that we offer. It's that seamless experience that we offer. It's being able to talk to one individual that helps you with everything related to Abu Dhabi and gives you access to all of the other entities in Abu Dhabi that are investing or are growing in specific sectors. So that's gives you a flavor of some of the offers, the incentives that we have to offer companies looking to set up here in Abu Dhabi.
Okay, very good. My friends from IBM had asked the question about technology, and you've answered that, I think, pretty well, and have a really good sense. You talked about some of the verticals and sectors. Dear friend Ruth Fry from Children's Hospital in Philadelphia is listening in, and she's asking about healthcare. Is ADIO focused on healthcare at all? And if so, how?
We're very focused on healthcare. And healthcare is an interesting sector because clearly what we're experiencing right now at a global level, right, is just emphasizing the need for strong, solid healthcare facilities and infrastructure in the country. And we have outstanding long-term relationships with a lot of US institutions, including the Children's Hospital and including Cleveland Clinic and others, right, that have been driven by this need to create this solid, robust infrastructure. So we're looking at things in the biomedical space, in technology. We're looking at how it is that we can offer grants for people to come in and do various things within that medical space. So we're enhancing, we are improving, we're adapting, we're offering new incentives for different areas. But this goes back to the point that I made earlier about we want to talk to every company about the ambitions that they have for Abu Dhabi. And based on understanding that ambition, we'll be able to better produce an incentive package that works for them to come and set up. So healthcare is critical, from pharmaceuticals to consumer medical goods to the biomedical space, biotech. We're looking at it across the spectrum, and we want to make sure that we're providing the overarching ecosystem that allows for those companies to thrive here. And that means changing policy, changing regulation, giving that feedback back up to the senior leadership in Abu Dhabi so that they understand what it is the private sector is looking for and how it is that's going to contribute to what it is that we're trying to accomplish.
Well, I want to make sure, Tarek, I have it clear in my head. One of the principal differences in the way you're set up from ADIO or from Mubadala, I mean, while they are also focused on internal investments in the country, a lot of their focus is external and around the world. You're focused exclusively on bringing investment, in bringing partnerships into the UAE to promote the diversification of Abu Dhabi's economy and the UAE's economy more broadly. Is that a fair statement?
That is an absolutely fair statement, sir.
Excellent, excellent. Couple other questions here. I want to bring the Agtech up here in a moment, but because that's really something important to me. But I'm just looking here through the list of a couple questions that some folks have raised, and one that's come up a few times in a few of our discussions has been the issue of in-country value in Abu Dhabi. And I know that this is an ADNOC-led initiative originally, but it's taken hold. In my conversations with Haldoon, my conversations with others in Abu Dhabi, they've all said to me that in-country value is a concept and a program that's going to be promoted more widely across Abu Dhabi Inc. for the future. To the extent that you're able, talk about that a little bit and how you see it and how you're helping companies coordinate with the policies and regulations of in-country value.
So everyone that worked on that in-country value, and hats off to ADNOC for the way it is that they push that and how it is that they set that up. I think what a lot of it has to do with, Danny, is Abu Dhabi's desire to have the private sector be more involved with the long-term economic growth and diversification in Abu Dhabi. And that's what it comes down to. You see programs that other countries have, you look at various initiatives that entities and institutions have on an international level, what it is they do in their local markets. And we're trying to replicate and build that so that what it does is it helps us accomplish both solid economic output, but it helps us educate and upskill. It helps us plug into the universities for R&D. It helps us work on policy. And I know I've emphasized policy here, but I think that the private sector is a very solid driver of the approach that we are going to have to take in terms of facilitating business and making it seamless. So, you know, the question is actually multifaceted as it relates to in-country value, because we want to reward companies that are coming and contributing to Abu Dhabi in more than just a financial economic sense. We want to make sure that across the spectrum, everybody's able to participate, contribute, and learn. Knowledge transfer is a key driver of what we do, and that is anchored in innovation. If we are not working with the private sector to help drive that, it's going to become very challenging for us to really build a robust model. And I think that is one of the key drivers for in-country value and local content policies that we have.
Some American companies are facing some problem with the in-country value policies. It's been raised to me a number of times over the last year and a half, and primarily in competition, I have to say so, with businesses coming from China that can offer a much lower overall business model. I'd say that's probably one where some of the competition is the most fierce. And American companies just want to continue to be able to provide you with the greatest technology, the greatest value, the greatest knowledge base, and to get to your point, to partner with you in creating original IP in the UAE for the future. Because after all, that's the key here, isn't it? Is for the UAE, for Abu Dhabi to become a center of IP production in the world in the future.
And Danny, that's why we welcome every single one of these conversations with every one of those companies and entities. And I would gladly personally have a discussion with them to understand how it is that we can better navigate this and how it is that we can work with them to make sure that they are still able to accomplish their ambitions as well as what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So please put them in touch with us and let us have discussions with them in terms of how it is that we can work with them on this.
Quick question on Expo. We're going to go to Agtech next, I promise. Quick question on Expo. What's ADIO's role, or how are you coordinating or interloping with Expo as it's now been postponed to next October?
So I think that, you know, the experience that we've gone through in the last few months has shown that there is a need for that collaborative, cooperative approach, which we've always had, and I think it's just really solidified that. And so we've been talking to the folks at Expo about how it is that we can work with them on this. There's a lot of discussions already, pan-UAE, in terms of everyone's involvement in Expo. I think that this is going to be a phenomenal showcase for the UAE. I think that it's an excellent opportunity, especially when you consider the transition a lot of businesses are going to be making over the next 12 to 18 months with their business models, and how it is that we're going to be able to highlight what it is that we have to offer through what is going to be an experience that I think very few events have been able to deliver. And so I think that this, from a timing perspective, is actually really, really good for us. We're working quite closely with all of the relevant parties to make sure that everyone's engaged, and we're ready to impress the world. And I think that that's what we're going to do.
That's great. In April of 2020, ADIO announced it would partner with 4 Agtech companies and invest $100 million to build new facilities in Abu Dhabi that are dedicated to developing next generation agriculture in arid and desert environments. What can you tell us about the investment in ADIO's focus? How's it going on food production and security? What's growing in the sector? Literally, what's coming up and growing in the agricultural sector?
So this is one of those really strong cases that, or examples of how it is that we work across the Abu Dhabi ecosystem, right? So when we engage with these companies, and 2 of them are from the US, and the other 2 are regional, we were looking at how it is that we could apply their technology here to be able to address various components, right? One thing I do need to highlight before I get into the details of those transactions is that, and this is incredible foresight and planning on the part of the Abu Dhabi government, was that we launched these initiatives last year. So this is way before the experiences that we're going through right now. And we were negotiating with them, we were putting everything in place. And then what happened in the second quarter of this year with quarantine and so on only emphasized and re-emphasized what it was that we had already identified as key segments that we needed to focus on. And so when we were having those conversations with entities, it was like, look, you've got phenomenal technology. We want you to come and test it here. And what was really interesting about the experience was that we had the Ministry of Food Security. We had the Abu Dhabi Agriculture Food Security Authority. We had various entities within Abu Dhabi. ADIO facilitating a lot of these discussions, but then really interestingly, watching how all 4 of those companies started engaging with one another without any of our input. And that is what it is that we're trying to create with that Agtech. So I think what we're looking at right now, and I know this for a fact, is that we want to make sure that we back and we support all of these agricultural technology companies that are being innovative, that want to come in, that want to help plant and grow different types of food in our environment. And we want to help support that. We want to de-risk that experience. We want to make sure that they've got a seamless sort of experience in Abu Dhabi. I think one thing that has happened because of travel restrictions was that we weren't able to get some of the folks over, but the business plans are still solid. We're going to launch this very soon. People are starting to come in now, and we're starting to build on that. But it's been quite an interesting experience. We've got a lot more companies in the pipeline right now that we've been speaking to that are looking to come and set up here. And I think that this is just going to create one of those clusters that feeds off of each other, but then also spread the spillover effect into the wider Abu Dhabi economy and ecosystem is going to be tremendous in terms of the education component and the food security related issues. And so We really like each one of them. And the American Agtech companies that we spoke to were really, really impressed. And I'm not saying this to highlight sort of a pat on our own shoulders here, right? But we're really impressed by the efficiency, the effectiveness, and what it is that Abu Dhabi had to offer. And that made the conversation much simpler.
We were so impressed when we brought our delegation of 15 American companies in February, and both of those companies that are your partners were part of that. But we were so impressed with Minister Miriam, the Minister of Food Security, and our many hours that we had with herself and her team, who are doing this amazing job at the federal level. Is she tough on you? Did she pick up the call and say, Tarek, you got to do this, you got to do that? And especially talk to us a little bit in that regard with regard to COVID and how the conversations went and what you learned from the COVID experience.
Well, the conversations were really polite, actually, and so we had some really productive conversations. I have to say, this has been...
He's very polite, so I expect them to be polite.
No. What I mean by that is that I think that through this experience, right, and there's a lot of pressure on a lot of folks recently in the last few months, but I think it's really highlighted, again, back to that point about how cooperative we are, both at a federal, at a local, and across Emirate approach to doing business and effectively working with companies is that, and I'm conscious that I didn't answer the question that you asked about what's actually growing here, right? So we're growing everything from blueberries and strawberries and raspberries to lettuce and tomatoes and everything else, right? But I think what that did was it created an even stronger bond than what existed in the first quarter of 2020. And we've been working very closely with them on other aspects of things, right? You know, whether it be seafood related, whether it be, you know, agriculture related, there's a lot of discussions there. And it's become quite a symbiotic relationship in terms of us being able to pick up the phone, having these committees that work across federal and local entities to make sure that we're delivering, and we're delivering as a collective. So we really enjoy working with her and her team. We enjoy working with all the ministries and all the Abu Dhabi entities that are really driving this forward. And I think it's just getting stronger and stronger.
That's outstanding. Do you have one or two lessons learned from the COVID-19 experience that's changed your direction in this vertical of food security for Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, I think it's that we did some really good planning. And I think that small tweaks to that planning have helped us be able to deliver. I think that it's been an emphasis that many countries have focused on, right, is that local reliability and being able to source stuff locally. And I think that that's what it is that we're really focused on driving now. We have incredible relationships across the world, right? We have very strong partnerships. And if you look at what the UAE has done just in the last few months with aid and medical supplies to over 50 countries to help over 1 million doctors and medical experts, we have built these relationships for a long time, and we want to take those relationships and help them translate that into boots on the ground, company on the ground, innovation-led policies and regulations. And I think that when I look at what it is that we have tweaked, the only thing that we've really tweaked is how aggressive and ambitious we've become, because our planning has helped identify that we were accurate and that we need to push even harder to make sure that not only are we delivering on our leadership's aspirations, but that it is that we are helping private companies who are looking to expand and grow be able to deliver in Abu Dhabi. And that's a key one for us. We want to make sure that those businesses that set up here are not just setting up so they check a box. They are setting up in Abu Dhabi. We're helping them become efficient, and we're helping them build a resilient business model that plugs into not just the UAE, but the wider region.
So that's a great segue to a series of questions that we got on the chat. First, real quick, you talked about how you coordinate at the federal level with the various ministries. How do you coordinate among the 6 other Emirates? And we have some friends from Dubai FDI on the line. We work very closely with Dubai FDI and help them with their missions to the US frequently. So the other 6 Emirates, and then how do you help American companies coming to set up and do business there explore and connect with the broader Gulf region? Those 2 questions.
So I think that The other six Emirates, I think the UAE as a whole, everyone with their respective kind of business ambitions have done a phenomenal job with promoting the UAE. At the end of the day, we are a singular country. Yes, different Emirates have different drives and sectors that they focus on, but I think that as a singular country, we have phenomenal relationships that we've built through every Emirates relationship, right? The Dubai FDI guys do a great job, as do Shurooq and other agencies that are in the UAE. We do not see ourselves as competition to those entities. We really are building a collaborative approach, and we see ourselves as complementary. We want to make sure that companies that set up in any of the other Emirates have access and availability and able to come and work in Abu Dhabi in an appropriate way that suits their requirements, as well as what it is that we are trying to accomplish. So you have entities that are based in Dubai or Sharjah or some of the other Emirates who have a sales and distribution center there, for example, will come and look to build an R&D facility in Abu Dhabi. That's very welcome. And we both manage those relationships, and we make sure that it's seamless for them across the UAE. So I really view this as a single country approach. We all benefit from the messaging that comes out of every emirate, and we have to make sure that we are applying this on a complementary basis and not in competition.
I'm really glad that you mentioned Shurooq and Sharjah, because we also have a very close relationship with His Excellency Marwan Al Circle and his team, and we've been very engaged and involved in helping them in the United States as well. And it's really great to hear that you guys are all coordinated and working together so well. What about the broader region? How do you help companies connect in the broader region, whether it's into Saudi or Bahrain or Kuwait or whatever it might be?
So I think, Danny, the easiest way to answer that question is to go back to a point that I made earlier. There is a reason why the UAE attracted more FDI than any other country in this region, in the Middle East, right? And that is because of the incredible infrastructure that we have. I think if you look at what it is that we offer, not only within the UAE, but because of the relationships and the very strong relationships that we've built across the region, companies that set up here can have a very seamless experience with how it is that they operate in other countries. Now, there are certain segments and sectors, and this goes back to the point I was making earlier about partnerships and having the private sector help drive policy to a certain extent. And what it is that we're trying to accomplish with that is say that, look, you come and set up in the UAE, we will put every mechanism that we need to put in place to help you succeed across the region. And so again, like I said, I don't see it as competition. I think there are substantial benefits to being in the UAE. It's all going to depend on the business model of the entity and the relationships that they have. But you know, maybe I'm biased. I think the UAE is the place to be for everybody.
Thank you, sir. I'm gonna sort of start wrapping this up a little bit. I want to ask a question about the workforce. What activities is ADIO specifically doing to help promote development of the UAE's workforce and Abu Dhabi's workforce? Do you have any specific initiatives, or is that more broadly in your coordination with other Abu Dhabi entities?
So, as many of the companies that we've worked with will tell you, a lot of the conversations that we have with them, we always include the component of how it is that they can participate in both with the universities, with schools, with various programs to help upskill workers. And we're trying to make sure that, again, to that point about building a really consistent and resilient model, is that we're not benefiting as the UAE just by having them present here, but that we're also helping to educate Emiratis, upskill non-Emiratis. This applies to everyone. We want that foreign talent to come here, be based here, so that we can all learn together as we move on this journey with one another. Now, I know that sounds quite cliche, and I don't mean to make it sound cliche, Danny, but I think that it's really important that we focus on how it is the private sector has built some economies. You look at the Irish model, you look at Singapore, they put the right policies in place, and the private sector came there to help drive a lot of the innovation and the upskilling of the labor force there, right? Some of it was forced, some of it was natural. We believe that we have programs in place through the institutions that are in Abu Dhabi and through ones that we want to create, that the private sector can play a key part in helping us develop. And that's why all of our conversations are about both economic and non-economic return.
Got it. As you know, the US-UAE Business Council has been engaged and involved from the creation with the Economic Policy Dialogue, which is the bilateral economic dialogue between the US and the UAE. It's really great to hear that ADIO is a conduit into the Abu Dhabi government, into the UAE government for some of these policy discussions. There's a lot of great ideas coming up from the private sector for you to consider, to think about. Some of them might be appropriate, some of them might not at all. But the fact that you're so willing to engage and to listen and to hear what private industry and private business is suggesting, I think is really, really important. With that, I think I'll sort of end on, well, what is the best way for U.S. companies to engage with ADIO? I think we've covered it more or less, but I want you to underscore it. While you're speaking, I might have David flash up the contact details screen, but we want our companies to come talk to you one-on-one, whether virtually or face-to-face. But I'm going to turn it over to you for that, please.
Thank you. And before I address that question, I do want to say one thing about policy. And I think that you will have noticed through a lot of the messaging and campaigns that have been launched in Abu Dhabi that we're very serious about making sure that the business regulations are catered and designed for the private sector to succeed. And a lot of that regulatory change was driven by all the various departments in Abu Dhabi engagement with the private sector. So it has become this very close relationship. Public-private sector relationship in terms of development. As it relates to how it is that you can engage with us, there's the traditional channels, right? Pick up the phone, send us an email, our website, and then there's social media. And we're becoming really active on social media, trying to engage with everyone. And then there's the network effect. Please reach out. All of us are on LinkedIn at ADIO. Just search for ADIO and message us, connect with us, and we will make sure that we get back to you with all the information that you're looking for, and hopefully take this conversation further and help you guys set up in Abu Dhabi and make it a really seamless experience for everyone.
Tarek, it's been wonderful, and I have to thank you also, your team. As I told you earlier when we started in the private session, your team has just been amazing. You have been recruiting some of the best. I would say to some of the other organizations in Abu Dhabi, they better watch out, because you're putting together a crackerjack team, as we say, and really, really impressive to work with. And I want to thank you so much for today, and I look forward to seeing you soon in Abu Dhabi when we can all travel again. And when you can travel to the U.S., the US-UAE Business Council looks forward to hosting you in Washington, New York, and San Francisco, wherever it is, and creating a platform to help you get your message out more broadly across the United States. So with that, sir, thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening in the UAE.
Thank you. Same to you.
All the best.